One thing I would change. We've each prepared one thing which we would change about Full Metal Jacket, which we will try to justify. Fred, you first, mate.
One change. Private Pyle doesn't freak out at the end of the first half.
Oh, Fred, I really wanted to help you out, but that's a terrible, terrible,
He still
terrible
freaks out
change.
at the end of the movie.
Okay.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
That's terrible.
Yeah, it's good.
This is like the one good thing about the movie. The only good thing.
All right. Go on, you tell me yours.
Well, no, you got 5 minutes, mate. Go,
Right.
flesh it out, man.
All right, I wrote some stuff.
Go on, let's hear
I
it.
came
Let's
up
hear
with
it.
this today.
I'm sorry.
So here was my thought. The problem is with initially I was like, what's the biggest change I could make? And I was like, no, I want the thing I would change. So what was my biggest problem with the film is what I first thought. It wasn't so much that it was split in half. It was interesting. My issue was that the split, I felt, made both stories feel rushed. So particularly the first section. The first section, as I said earlier, when I paused it to watch the football, I realised it was like 45 minutes, 50 minutes in. By that point, the whole of Pyle's narrative has happened. So all the stuff we spoke about in the plot section, his turn from being a child to being a sadist and a weirdo, maybe a bit of a weirdo at the start, but it all happens within a very short, confined period. And to me, rewatching it, I did know this happened, but rewatching it, I really felt like it was more of a montage than a story. Like, it didn't feel quite natural. Some of the beats were just rushed. So my one change, which I haven't thought much through, so we'll see if it works, is that Pyle still goes crazy, but this is at the end of the film rather than the 45 minutes in. So he goes to war as he was going to, and the thought process behind my change would be like this. So he's gone a bit wild, still at the same point. Maybe you elongate the training session a bit so it's not quite as montagey. Mm-hmm. You have him get beaten up. You have the drill sergeant be a bully. You don't kill the drill sergeant, but you do send him out to war as now a real affected individual. Like, he's changed from a child to someone with the sensibilities of a child, but the deranged mind of a bit of a killer. So let's say that he goes to war. Maybe he lands in Cowboy's squad to keep it all the same. Or if you want, you just replace Cowboy with him. So the rest of the story happens as is. Joker, when he goes out, ends up going to see Pyle and Cowboy, or just Pyle. And at this point, Pyle's got a bit of a reputation. So he's like a loose cannon. He's sadistic. He's very capable, as he was shown to be near the end of his training. And I sort of compared him a bit to the helicopter man who was just going mad and just killing loads of civilians. But this is someone who Joker cares about, and who's Joker has had like a mentor-mentee relationship for. So the sequences that happen still happen, but things like, you know, instead of Animal maybe going a bit wild, maybe Private Pyle's the one going wild, and he's going wild to a way worse degree. For instance, when that prostitute comes and they have the scene about the prostitute comes and they all decide how they're going to, who's going to have a go on the prostitute. Instead, maybe Pyle is a bit sadistic. He takes her away and he tortures her a bit or something like that, and it comes back as things start happening. All right.
Right.
Maybe we don't need to go into detail what he does, but things start happening.
There was no need for that.
Pyle goes, he's way off the deep end. He's killing civilians. He's committing atrocities. And then instead of the kind of bit of a wet fart ending where, oh, look, we're just going into war and everyone's dying, and then we're going to get into a bit of an arbitrary situation with a sniper, the completion of the arc of Pyle going way off the deep end, he ends up being like a wild dog that Joker has to put down. So he ends up, whereas before it was the teenage girl who gets killed at the end, instead now Pyle has gone through his full The full emotional change that he went through within 45 minutes, you're given a good 2 hours to flesh it out. You get to see him in a different setting. You get to see him mature in the wrong way. And Joker, who was shown to be the person mentoring him at the start, has to come full circle and realizes that he is the only one who's going to be able to take responsibility for this. And so the decision at the end, rather than feeling a bit like Joker decide whether he kills a girl or not, it's actually got a lot more emotional pull to it.
Do you know what, Fred? I really like that. That's great. Yeah, I actually do.
Yeah.
I'm convinced.
Yeah.
That would have been a way better film.
I feel like
I'm getting the George and Lenny vibes, which I kind of got at the start anyway. And like, if they'd have lent into that and made it a more creative thing and much more kind of devastating, it would have been fantastic.
I'll give you the problems with it. Like, clearly it's not, crazy original. And it takes away from some of the originality of the film. Like, the originality of the film is that the first 45 minutes are pretty wild. But what I would say is you keep the wildness of the first 45 without having, like, the rushed character, kind of weird character piece of Pyle. You can elongate that over to the rest of the film. The second half of the film's more interesting because it's got a more interesting character involved.
There's a point in it.
There is a bit more of a point to the second half, in my opinion. Yeah. And while, it may be, as Taylor's old as time in terms of it's been done before, it feels earned, I guess, the way it goes at the end.
No, I'm totally convinced. I think as well, like you really, you could lean really into the duality of man thing as well. I tell you what, a cool thing to kind of creative it up a little more and develop it further is you could have it so that Joker kills him, as you say, but then the Stars and Stripes end up reporting him as this kind of hero.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's this kind of like absurdity of war, duality. Like Gomer goes down as this hero in history when really he's actually been this complete lunatic.
Yeah, what did it mean? You could choose whether you wanted Joker to kill him and take responsibility for the death, or maybe to kill him as an accident. But it was moral to kill him, but maybe he decides to shirk the responsibility of outright a court-martial offence. Friendly fire. Maybe he decides to make it look like it was an accident. You could also add a wrinkle like everyone knows that he's Section 8 at this point, and they refer to Section 8, I presume, as someone who's gone mad. Maybe it's clear that this guy's Section 8. He's gone off the deep end, but he's clearly shown to be too competent as a killer at this point, and the higher-ups want killers. So it again plays on the running of the war machine,
the morals of it all, and
versus actually human impact. So that was my thought.
You know what, Fred? I don't even want to share mine anymore. That's so much better.
No, we got to see.
That's good. Well, it's lucky I was so nice about yours then, wasn't it?
Let's have a look at this. One change.
I had to choose one thing to change about Full Metal Jacket. So here it is. I said earlier that what I thought the story needed was a clearer driving force. So I've come up with one. What I needed was the smallest change possible. What I was hoping for was the smallest change possible, which would leave the movie largely the same, because I did truly feel that the journey that I went on had fascinating and hilarious and painful moments in all the best ways. Mm-hmm. But what the story needed was just a small tweak to provide Private Joker with a reason to go from the barracks to the military press and then to the fighting zone, which felt more intentional and tied together. This will allow the story to feel more like a story and less like life happening to Private Joker.
Okay.
And so the one thing I would change about Full Metal Jacket is I would add a tinge of macabre to Private Joker's character profile.
Okay.
Macabre is a word that I learned today.
Okay. Tinge
Which,
of the macabre.
For those unenlightened like myself this morning, means someone with a little fascination around death and morbid and blood and
occult.
Violence. And now, I'm not suggesting that we make him a psychopath. I'm thinking Dexter, but like 98% dialed down, right? Just a scene at the start which shows that what drives Private Joker to join the army, then to go to the press and then go to the war zone, was something that he chose to do through a kind of curiosity. You could still explore the duality of man. And so you could argue that the finding ambivalence of Private Joker was important to the point in the film because it kind of represents the younger generation who sort of fell into the Marines. His ambivalence was kind of a part of that, you know. He kind of needed to be for that point to be made. However, to those, I would argue that Kubrick made this point about 1,000 fucking times in every other character, and it doesn't make for a very entertaining story when your protagonist just sort of meanders around. It would give us a reason to go from A to B to C, and just give him a curiosity to explore.
Cubicle.
You could go from squaring him, and you could cubic him. And you could continue to lean into the duality of man theme, and ask, will he become the born to kill Joker or the peace symbol Joker? And it would give me as the viewer a path to go down.
Will he put on some face paint? Will he fight Batman?
I'll try and tie it up again then, shall I? Kubrick could continue to lean into the duality of man theme. Will he become the born to kill Joker or the peace symbol Joker? And it would give me as a viewer a path to go down rather than a field to aimlessly wander.
Ooh,
so that's what I prepared.
Okay, so a darker Joker.
Yeah, and it only needed to be honest, it was less about the darkness and more about the curiosity.
Yeah, more of a subtle change, but probably means that you get more of a, a version of the film certainly more similar to what it was, but with just one element of it that you really a big gripe for you.
Yeah, I think that a film for me needs a driving force, right? I've watched a film. I watched the film called The Darjeeling Limited or something the other day. Do you know the one?
I've heard of it, but
it was another film where it's very centered around characters, and it kind of just felt like meandering. Meandering always feels like a very good word for these films for me, and this was another one. And I can't enjoy those films.
Right.
I need a reason to be there. I need to be working towards something. I need to get somewhere.
Okay.
I don't care if it's an antagonist or a protagonist or an anti-hero, or I don't care who it is. Someone's got to be trying to achieve something, right? And no one was trying to achieve anything in this film. It just happened.
Right.
So just a slight curiosity to Private Joker would kind of give us something to follow.
Yeah, I guess one thing on that, though, that does, as a devil's advocate stance, is the point of war being pointless. And having characters that don't have any real reason to be there.
Sure.
Maybe is more of a comment on, maybe Kubrick's trying to comment on why are we there for war?
Yeah, 100%. But like I said, I mean, there were like 1,000 times that he hit us over the head with stuff like that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, and I think he could sacrifice one of them to just introduce some sort of plot to this story.
Yeah. Okay, fair enough. Well, we have both given our change, and be good to see what you think. Which one?
Yeah, if you comment down below if you're watching this as a video, or if I don't know how you can comment on podcasts, but if you're listening, just write in, email us. And we'll see what we come up with in future. But I'll be honest, I reckon Fred probably won that one.
I'll be interested to see what we didn't think about, because we'll be told.
We will be told, which we appreciate. Thank you.